I call this meeting of the Enterprise Committee into session. We're going to hear today from the port and AWW, and we'll see if we have time. Maybe we'll hear from others too. But introduce the folks up here.
Jennifer Johnson.
Elvie Gray-Johnson.
Tim Steele. And I guess, Steve, you're up first.
Okay. Just stand, is that right? Or,
That's fine and dandy.
Okay.
Speak up so we can get you on tape.
All right. Steve Rebuffo, Port Director, and I'm here this morning with Lon Ellich, who is our the lead for TH2M, our project management consultant team that also resides on the port for the Anchorage Port Modernization Project. When we spoke on the phone, sir, you asked for an update on how things were going with Alaska Basic Industry and Delta Western's with their construction projects down at the port, and then I'll let Lon bring you up to speed on where we are on the project itself. So let's talk about ABI first. They're the easy one. As everybody knows by now, the ABI is constructing this white dome-shaped storage facility. It's designed to hold 40,000 tons of cement. With the 20,000 tons of storage they already have down there, they've in essence tripled the amount of cement that they can keep and store down at the port. The business motivation behind doing that was to get a little bit off of being caught at the margin at the end of a construction season by not having enough to start the next construction season before the first ship comes in. So it allows them to bring in additional supply to meet the demand and to meet what they're forecasting to be a little bit of a growing demand for construction here in the state. Where they are now is they finished about a month ago with the steel reinforced shotcreting that was done on the outside of that dome. The dome went up as a kind of like a balloon, if you will, in the beginning, with a big air compressor outside, blowing air inside it and raising it up and getting it shaped. Once it was all shaped up, then they went inside with shotcrete like you're building a swimming pool and sprayed around the interior, put steel reinforcement in it to create the hard structure. And then that skin stays on the outside as the exterior structure. It's white, so it reflects the heat, and moisture doesn't build up inside. You don't get condensation because you want cement, you want concrete, and you want concrete. You don't want it any other time. So that's kind of the motivation behind here. Since they finished that, they put on top of it what they call a hi-hat. It's a structure of machinery, and all the plumbing that comes off of their dock will run up the outside and into the dome from the top. So all the cement will be loaded from the top. They started pouring the floor about 2 weeks ago, and it's just about done. And Dale Mormon tells me that by late October, early November, they'll have the floor done in there, and the dome will be ready to receive product. They have one more ship coming in early November for the season. And he's also extended an invitation to anybody who may be interested in coming out and seeing it once it's done to come on down. So I'll go ahead and I'll put the word out for anybody on this committee who might be interested in taking a quick tour inside this thing once it's done.
I'd like to see
Nothing
it.
else, it'd be a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
I mean, it's fascinating.
So do they have, is the HVAC system, I mean, how, they've got to have some kind
Well,
of...
it's ventilated, and there is a way to keep the dust down inside. Don't ask me what that is, though.
Yeah.
But that's all part of all the
That'd be fun to
mechanical
see.
that's going in. Yeah. I'm going to find out that what I see in my mind's eye is probably not what's really there. So I'm looking forward to doing it as well. Delta Western.
Let Elvie.
I'm sorry, Elvie.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I probably missed it, but this dome is for storage for construction?
Storage of cement.
Right, storage of cement. I know
Yes.
that part.
For
but
state construction projects, they ship quite a bit of it up to the mines.
Okay, so it's storage for cement for projects throughout the community?
Throughout the state.
Throughout the state.
Their customer base is all over the place.
Okay,
All
so
the
that's...
way up to Barrow,
and
all the
it's
way
down
down
at the
home.
port?
I'm sorry?
And it's down at the port?
It's at the port, yeah.
So I have another
You're the
question
only
if I
person
can
in
follow
town who
up.
hasn't seen it.
I doubt that. But anyway, my follow-up question is, so, and I don't come to these meetings often, but I'm very happy I'm here today. So why is storage for concrete for the state?
Not concrete.
Cement. All right, I made a
Yeah.
mistake. Sorry.
Yeah.
For cement for the state, why is it being stored at the port? Other than maybe that's where the space is. So why is it happening there?
There's a rail connection at the port.
Right.
Yeah, it is the only receiving point for that company.
Okay.
And what they do, and what's been happening of late is they have to pre-stage everything to move them because they don't have enough storage at the port, and move it down to where their facilities are at the end of Minnesota and Old Sewer,
Okay.
where Anchorage, Santa Gravel is. So they're handling it twice.
Okay.
They can leave it at the port. They don't have to handle it twice. They can load it on whatever delivery vehicle is going to take it to its final destination. So when you do that, you take some of the transportation piece out and your costs go down.
Okay, thank you. And not to take up a lot of time, Mr. Chairman, but I'm being educated here, and I really appreciate it. So the dome is on port property.
Dome's on port property.
So is port getting any
We're getting
compensation?
lease revenue as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
lease revenue, and in fact, we're getting lease revenue now because they couldn't start the construction until they have a lease.
Okay,
So yeah, we get that and dockage and wharfage, just like all the
Cool.
other companies that are down there.
excellent. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
very
Thank you,
well.
Mr. Chairman.
Humidity control. How is that done?
I have no idea.
We'll ask that
Right there, more
when we take a tour. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Now, the other construction project that isn't costing us a dime, isn't costing the community a dime, the private sector's building it, is Delta Western's new tank farm. They've leased, and for the last 2.5 years now, they've leased from us about 2 acres, a little over 2 acres of property down there, and they started construction on May the 1st of this year of their new facility. When it's completed in total, there'll be 6 tanks that'll amount to another, let me do the math, 360,000 barrels of storage. Their business plan is to build the tankage as their requirements for having storage at the port grow. So the first tank that they put in is going to be for a new product we've never seen before, methanol. They have a customer up on the slope for that methanol. So once that tank is finished, that's the first product that will come in across the dock and be stored in that tank and then delivered on to their customers up there. As I understand it, methanol is what you put down in the drill rigs down into the plumbing, so it doesn't freeze when you're not using the drill rig, so that when they put those things in warm storage, if you will, and they're not using them, methanol is what keeps everything from freezing. So that, and I'm sure there are other customers using it for other things, but we're going to have a 60,000 barrel methanol tank for starters down there. The tank is just about finished. They've been working on that for the last few months. Where they are now is they have to connect the tank to the valve yard, which is where all the plumbing that comes off of the petroleum docks goes first, before it goes out to the different terminals on the port. So they need to establish a presence within the valve yard to run their plumbing to the port. So they've got the whole ground torn up in our petroleum pipeline right-of-way area to put their pipe in and tie into the valve yard plumbing, and that's what's going on now.
What are the completion dates of the two projects?
Both have said that they want to try and be done before the end of the calendar year. And I think Delta Western is a little bit behind schedule. Permitting for a petroleum storage facility is a little more challenging than it was for the guys putting in the cement storage.
Is it shipped by truck?
I'm sorry?
Methanol shipped by truck or by
rail and
by rail
by
up to
truck.
Fairbanks
And by truck, because they're going to put a truck fill stand there as well.
Jennifer.
Jennifer?
Do you know what the status is as far as the tank farm over on the other side of the Nick Arm?
No. I've heard a lot
Have
about
you
that.
seen any building over there?
Not from the vantage point that we had, which is not to say it isn't happening, because we see the port,
Uh-huh.
but then you got to go up that road to the flatlands at the top, and from the dock facility to where any infrastructure would go up there is about a 2-mile drive anyway.
Even
So-
for their lay
Yeah.
down yard that they're talking
Yeah, and when
about?
the rail line goes in, the rail line is going to terminate about 2 miles from the dock. I mean, it's a big place, but there's no ready connection. That's why I like to tell people, and our rail is a quarter mile from the yard, at the same elevation.
Yeah.
You don't have to go uphill to find it.
Other questions?
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
should also mention that we just found out 2 weeks ago that Crowley, who already has a presence down at the port, got a contract with the Department of Defense to construct 4 more tanks for another 240,000 barrels of storage, all military fuel. It's the DoD has decided that their war reserve fuel stock that they've been keeping at a terminal in Washington State,
Is not close
with
enough.
the plans to ship it up here as needed, that it made more sense to just put it here if there was space to put it. So they put out a contract for bid. Crowley won the contract. So they're also constructing 2 more storage tanks.
Do we have
4 more
space?
storage tanks.
Do we have space down
They have
there?
the space to do it.
Why
yeah.
not align up to the base and have the
They already
tank
have a
farm?
line to the base through the valve yard.
Okay.
They've had that for years. So that's how all the fuel moves from the port up the hill to their storage tanks. When all that construction is done, we'll have over 3 million barrels, 3.2 and a little bit million barrels of storage down the port.
Are we running out of space?
Yes.
What are your plans for that?
Yeah. Well, we've got the 60 acres out at the north end. Once we determine how much I'm not counting that because once
gonna
we don't
say,
know
you can't
how
say
much
you're
is
running
going to
out
be
of
left
space.
yet.
Yeah.
Once we know how much is left, then we can start to make plans for that.
Yeah.
It's kind of ahead of the ball game to try and do that now. We've been talking to the base about getting some acreage at the top of the bluff, somewhere near as overflow, and I've got a couple of other considerations to give that are off the port but close by. But we haven't gotten ourselves in a situation yet where there's been a real problem we can't handle. There's enough for anything that we've had to do that isn't the normal business. We've been very successful in finding the space for it now, but my concern is being ready for when the gas line goes into production. We don't know how much stuff will come in and how long it'll be here before it moves out, and we certainly don't want to miss out on those opportunities. So part of me's hoping that the land that's out there at the north end is available by then, and then there are some other places nearby that are close to routes that people would take driving out of the port anyway. That would make good sense as a Plan B kind of location.
Yeah. I want to welcome Mr. Abbott.
Okay, and that's the update on the 2 construction projects going on. Crowley's is about to begin, so I'll know more about that once they start breaking ground to do their thing.
What kind of volume are you doing with the airport? Is that picked up? Is that
Yes,
staying?
it has picked up to the point where we have gone from seeing 4 tankers in 2013 to 14 in 2014 to 27 this year that are booked through the end of the year. We have 5 tankers booked we haven't seen yet that are coming in this year.
Wow.
This is going to be the year. I hope I'm not putting my reputation on the line, but I'm thinking this may be the year where petroleum pushes containers off the top of the heap as far as the big volume coming into the port. Yeah, the growth is that astounding. And John Parrott tells me it's the new norm. This is an expected flow of business on the air, particularly on the air cargo side of the house, that isn't going to stop.
Is the gas pipeline expected to go, I presume, on the other side of the inlet? I mean,
Yeah.
go down-
Point McKenzie down
go
to
across.
and down and across. Yeah,
Okay.
probably not a bad idea.
So that'll probably be helpful for the other port.
Well, yeah. As I talk to the guys doing the logistics planning for this thing, there isn't going to be a port mistake left out of the equation. They're going to be moving so much stuff on such a short span of time that they're going to need absolutely every marine terminal facility they can find to bring stuff in. That's how much volume is going to be. I don't think the long pole in their tent is going to be docks. I think it's going to be truckers to start moving that stuff. Yeah, and they're worried about that too.
How's your port project going?
That's an excellent segue.
Thank you.
Let me step aside now and give Mr. Ellis an opportunity to chat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So briefly, it's been 2 months since we talked about this. As far as the PMO office itself, down at the port, the project management office, we're implementing the electronic document management system. We've been doing that for the last couple of months. We've completed the testing phase, and we're going to do training this next week, and that will make sure the muni and the port and us has a complete electronic document management control system in place for all the records. For the test file program, the permitting side, we've been working with National Marine Fisheries about the beluga whales, the take and pod calculations. We've come to an agreement with them. And then we have been modifying the permit applications and the IHA for our spring test file installation. And we've been getting a lot of, I think, traction with the agencies. It looks like we're on schedule to have our permits in place well before we actually do the work. For the marine design, task order 5, we've prepared what we, it's a long title, an evaluation of design alternatives to satisfy the GAC recommended seismic performance requirements. And basically what that is to compare the current ASCE standards that we're proposing to follow. We're already going to increase the category of seismic design, and we're working to analyze whether we can meet the additional requests from the GAC and what the impact of the program would be. We've completed that draft report. We've briefed the report on it. So we're going back and making a few changes to that report based on their comments.
Is that, excuse me, is that going to change the standard such that you're going to have to change contracts, or
No.
what is?
No, sir, it is, it really is, you design the various levels of
Safety.
seismic categories for various levels of seismic reoccurrence. In our case, it only affects 2 terminals, and we feel, we're already increasing the category that we wanted to design to make sure those 2 terminals were still functional after a seismic event. And the GACs asked us to see if we can bring it up a little higher, considering the unique location of the port. In their words, the fact that there's no other port that can take the fill in if our terminals are out of commission for a while. So we're working on that, and we found, I think, some very unique. I'll just say I'm very pleased with the unique solutions that my design team came up with, and they're relatively found we could do for some impact what was requested, and now the port will be looking at that, and then eventually we'll brief the GAC on it. But it'll be a municipal decision as to whether we proceed with those requirements or not.
When is that decision expected? I mean, when are we going to be asked for that kind of decision?
We tentatively would like it by the end of this year, early next spring. It really goes into effect when we go into the design towards the end of next year, and we procure a designer record. We need to have those requirements at hand for that. For the Landside Buildings, we have completed the programmer report on the Landside Buildings that would have to be moved off of Terminal 1. We've given that to the port, and right now we're basically waiting to see if and when we want to proceed, and exactly how we want to proceed with arranging for a design build contractor. We've been doing a lot of work on the landside site investigation with the municipality vendors, surveying, geotechnical sampling, both aerial and land surveying, and that is going well, and in some cases is coming to an end, and that's allowing us to work on the North Extension Stabilization Project. We're doing a civil design on that. And then we started the permitting for the entire program. And we've had 2 meetings. One's been with all the agencies to discuss the various approaches we could take to permitting, whether we do it as one major permit or we break it up into 2 smaller permits, and how it would be formatted as far as an EA, environmental assessment or anything like that. And we've held a separate meeting with the Corps over the 408 process. It's basically because we're going to be building in a federal project, a dredge project, we need to get a 408 permit from the Corps to allow that to happen. And we're going to be doing some modeling of the sedimentation and the hydrodynamics of our structures. So that's all going well. There's been no change orders, we're on schedule, on track for all that. I'd like to talk briefly about the Kiewit contract. We are actually, as of today, have started work on the geotech drilling. They're drilling actually this morning. They're setting up on Terminal 2, and they will be drilling probably for the next 2 to 3 weeks at various locations around the berths. They'll be coordinating with the port to make sure that they're out of the way of the vessels. So we've been working for the last month to answer some questions they raised on their geotechnical work plan. We worked with SHPO and with NIMS and been able to get relief on their means and methods without having to actually get permit modifications or any cost impacts to Kiewit. So they're able to start actually on schedule today.
Is this to get core samples?
They're drilling down basically, I do not believe it's core samples. I believe it's more characteristic samples. They'll be bringing up some core samples, but we need to go down to the full depth of the pile. We know the first 100 feet really well. We don't know the next 100 feet.
We didn't do that last time? I mean, we
They
didn't.
weren't anticipating the deep depth of piles that we're planning. So it's really to reaffirm the pile length. We've taken a rather conservative approach on the pile length, and it's possible that
May adjust.
the designer may be able to shorten it up, save some money and some time. So,
Questions?
No, thank you.
Sure.
Sure.
Are you finished? You're not
Yes,
finished?
yes,
Right.
ma'am.
Okay. Just for my curiosity, what was the cost of the electronic management system?
Actually, there's some internal labor, and that's it. It's an in-house system that we own, and so we're putting one of our EDMS document control managers on it, and that's it. That's the only cost.
And then just for clarification, because just some institutional knowledge, these monthly meetings came out of when we approved the CH2M Hell contract. And it was, because I'm not sure if Mr. Abbott is aware of this either, that it was part of the assembly approval to have a monthly update so that the assembly would not go to sleep, basically. And this update can either be in writing or it can be in a formal committee, but it's part of the approval for CH2M Hell.
Can I follow up?
Just so the administration now, I mean, it's, and it doesn't necessarily, what happened, then we pulled in MLMP because that was another large construction project, and so they became part of the reporting. But it is something that, as I say, it can be by written documentation or it can be a formal committee, just so the chair knows and so this topic.
Alvin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Johnson. I remember that happening, but I also remember the Enterprise Committee being established because of issues, not issues, I don't want to call issues, but general government and saving money with general government. And then, you know, your intent was to have the utilities do the same thing. So I remember the committee being established for that purpose also. And I just thought I would mention that.
No, that was
So,
also part of the committee,
Yeah.
but this aspect of it, this reporting as far as construction projects, I just wasn't sure. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
Mr. Still was on the committee at the time, and I knew that Mr. Abbott was not familiar with this, so I just thought while I was sitting here with a chance to
Valid.
remind folks.
Valid point. I'm hoping that we get both MLMP and the port start getting the flow diagram again in terms of task and where you are on the task and that kind of thing. And I don't know if the project has changed to the extent that that's not valid, but it seemed to me that was a useful product that we got on a monthly basis, and we were able to track it a little bit better. So. future reference. Mr. Trainee, welcome.
Thank you, sir. I'm late.
I didn't notice. We'll have to dock your
Really,
pay.
Ellie?
Anything
you
else you
later.
want to pass on to us in terms of what's going on, what's great? I did have a question also about berms. Are you going to have to re-berm or berm differently based upon the methanol and the new tanks that you've got in there?
I'll give you the layman's answer. It's a marketing major answering an engineering question.
No.
The whole terminal is burned.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take the leap of faith that in the permitting process, they were told how to do it rightfully.
Mhm.
Now, methanol, a little bit different product than regular gasoline is. I don't know if from a safety perspective, it requires more or less. I just know that part of that berm is a concrete wall, and the first thing they did was dig down about 10, 12 feet to begin to build the bathtub that all the tanks are going to go into. So that was all
It's for
done first, and
leaks
that's
as
the way.
well.
And then they line it with some kind of material liner. Put the drainage systems in for water. Put the oil and water separator in for everything else. And all that's been done according to code, and they've not had a work stoppage related to any kind of a code violation. It's mostly been degree of difficulty in the construction that was unanticipated.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
That's it. That's it.
All right. ML&P? Oh, yeah. Or AWW, pardon me.
Would you like AWW first?
Well, yeah, I better take AWW because I had them on the agenda.
Are we going to need this?
I don't know if we're going to need it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, guys. I jumped the gun. Maybe. There you go.
So I'm Steve Nuss. I'm the Capital Program Manager for the Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility. Brett couldn't be here today. He had some other plans to leave, but he wanted me to talk a little bit about what we're doing out at Aspen. And yesterday he gave this big 50-slide presentation to the board. And I'm not going to give you a 50-slide presentation. About 10 minutes here, high flyover stuff. And if you guys want more detailed information, just ask as we go through. It's kind of informal here. So, investing in Aspen, I call this Anchorage's quiet, critical asset. You have the port, you have the airport that pound on the table all the time about how critical they are, and I just like to say, without us guys, you guys wouldn't be here. So,
It would be knee deep in something.
A little bit, just want to go over the capital investment, the operational investment, some of the regulatory compliance things that we have going on, and also the long-term planning that we're taking into consideration as we move forward with our investment in Aspen. So Aspen sits out there by the airport. It's Anchorage's wastewater treatment facility, but it's also a regional treatment facility in the fact that we take a lot of septage and we treat the septage from the valley that currently comes into the Anchorage system. So, whether or not it's Anchorage's asset, it's a regional asset as well. So it serves all of the Anchorage metropolitan census area, which goes all the way out in Palmer and Wasilla and stuff like that when you look at it from an economic perspective. Recently, over the last 5 years, we've completed a little over $12 million of projects. The key focus there has been on maintaining our assets. We had to do a whole bunch of generator and electrical improvements to bring it up to code, make sure that we had enough backup power previously our generators were sized to only be able to run a portion of the plant. We increased the generator sizes so we could run all of the plant in a power outage. We also had 2 electrical feeds in the plant that led it to be kind of wonky. When there was a power outage, you get one part of the plant that would run and one part of the plant that wouldn't run, so we kind of fixed all that. We had to do some fire and sprinkler code upgrades to comply with FM Global requirements of our insurance. We've done a lot of concrete preservation. We have thousands and thousands of yards of concrete out there that get exposed to the sewage on a daily basis, and we have to protect it regularly. About every 20 years we have to go in there and give it a good cleaning and coating and things like that. So we've done a lot of preservation work on our concrete. We've made some storage upgrades as we've done improvements around the plant and added equipment and processes. All our storage space keeps on getting shrunk smaller and smaller, and we don't have the space that we need anymore for spare parts and chemicals and things like that. Utilidors, a lot of our process piping and everything out there at Asplin runs in buried utilidors. Well, we did all this upgrades to the electrical system, but we had utilidors that were leaking water during rain events on top of all this brand new electrical system. So we had to go and fix these leaks, unearth the top of the utilidors, waterproof and things like that. So, $12.5 million roughly over the last 5 years. And then starting in 2013, we began the process of looking at our facility and preparing a facility plan. We do facility plans for all our treatment sites every 7 to 10 years. It gives us a holistic look of where things are going, what we need to do to be in compliance with regulatory concerns that may be coming down the line, as well as, what's failing, what's, our operational cost on a specific piece of equipment. Should we replace it? When should we replace it? Those kind of things. So we looked at regulatory compliance issues. We looked at what we call non-process improvements, building upgrades, concrete preservation work, code compliance things, and then also process improvements, things that are related to replacing, the incinerator or any other type of actual process treatment equipment. All of the assumptions that we made when we did the facility plan between 2013 and 2014 assumed we were still able to operate for at least the next 10 years under the 301H provisions of the Clean Water Act, which gives us a waiver from secondary treatment requirements. So, regulatory requirements, 5 big items there. Air compliance, we incinerate all the sludge that we have at our plant. We have to make sure we comply with air permit requirements. They're getting more stringent. We've been investing a lot heavily just in personnel alone with environmental compliance on that. Wastewater discharge, we want to make sure that we're maintaining environmental reporting, compliance, monitoring, so we can maintain our 301H provisions. Residuals management with our sludge, making sure with our ash sludge, and then also our screenings that we're complying with discharge requirements to the air, also for the ash and screenings that we send out to landfill. Stormwater, we have to ensure that everything that comes on our site, we treat properly and it doesn't run off. We have a multi-sector general permit there. And then the risk management program, prior to April of this year, AWW was using gaseous chlorine for disinfection out at Asplin. We've had a project in the works since 2006 that's under construction right now, and I'll get to that in a second. That moves us from a gaseous chlorine to a high-strength bleach disinfectant. And we had 40 tons of gaseous chlorine stored out at Asplin at any one time out there, which created a huge risk in terms of life if something was ever to happen out there and the wind was blowing wrong. You could have really impacted a large portion of this community. So now that we're not using gaseous chlorine, we can deregister from having to follow the risk management program requirements. So what's underway right now, a $19.6 million project to move us from gaseous chlorine to sodium hypochlorite, high-strength bleach. We're going to generate it on site. Interesting discussion here with the concrete storage down there, because to generate this bleach, we have to have salt. We have to have salt in huge quantities. Our contractor from Univar is saying, you can really do better if you can go to a whole barge load of salt in one fell swoop and just construct yourself a storage facility like at the port or someplace, because the specific type of salt we need is only manufactured in Mexico in one facility and in Utah in another facility. And so there's buying in bulk saves you money at times, and also handling and things like that. So that may be something that we're looking at down the road. But we're going to be using a lot of salt. We're going to be bringing a lot of salt in through the port and having to haul it. We've also got other projects going on. We're upgrading the air quality analyzers on our scrubber units. We're doing additional painting work out there. We're doing seismic code analysis and upgrades. There's hot water systems that we use to clean the screens out there. We have screens that take all the big chunks out of the water that we replaced 10, 11 years ago that now need a major overhaul just because of the environment that they're in and the wear and tear that they get from 24/7 operation. There's a beach tower down there. It's graffiti filled, but that beach tower that's out off Port Warren's off Park is actually designed to help maintain our chlorine or our disinfection contact time with our effluent before it discharges in there. So the water comes in down at the bottom, bubbles up to the top, and then falls over a dividing wall there. Well, with all the storms and things like that, we've seen a lot of the bluff slide from behind there, and we're concerned about the erosion, so we've got a project going on there to help stabilize that embankment and protect that beach tower, because if that beach tower fails, we don't have the necessary chlorine contact time before we discharge out in the inlet. We also have a couple things like our sludge dewatering. We have belt filter presses that smush the sludge cake out, get the water out of it before we can put it in the incinerator. And those belts are 30 years old, and we can't find pieces and parts for them anymore. We have guys at our shops hand manufacturing pieces when we need them to keep them in maintenance. So we've got a lot of improvements currently going on, over 30 million. Moving forward over the next 6 years, on our sewer side of the house, we have about a total $125 million capital improvement plan. $23 million of that roughly, or about 1/5 of it, we're planning on future investments into Asplin, just to keep it operational and running. These were things that were identified in our facility plan between 2013 and 2014. Why is all this important? Well, hold on. Let's talk about operational investment. Right now, to run Asplin, to make sure it's environmentally compliant and keep everything running smoothly, we spend a little over $7 million a year out there. We have 27 staff that work out there or assist with environmental compliance and pre-treatment requirements out there. That $7 million represents over 42% of our total treatment budget between water treatment and sewer treatment costs. So this is a big component of our operational budget out there. And it's important to keep it running. Our guys, these are a couple of them over there on the right-hand side, they do an excellent job. We've been recognized year after year with national awards, the NACWA, National Association of Clean Water Agencies, PEAK Awards for compliance with regulatory requirements. So every year, gold is yearly, platinum is every 5 years of compliance. So we've been doing really good. We have one long-standing track record out there. Why is this investment required? Our operational permit technically expired in August of 2005. We got it administratively extended in 2009 during President Obama's visit here in August. The EPA Region 10 director made it a point to come and seek out the mayor, saying, hey, you know, we're coming. We can't hold off on looking at your permit any longer. And to operate under the 301H provisions, there's 9 criteria that you have to meet to be able to comply. One, you have to be a marine discharge. That's the overarching thing. But you also have to make sure that you're having a balanced indigenous wildlife, fish population. You have an environmental monitoring program in place. You have a robust pre-treatment program in place. You're not straining other dischargers. There's no other dischargers within Upper Cookman. We're maintaining toxic control from other sources, and we do a good job with that with the solid waste services, household hazardous waste program, and a lot of our pre-treatment work, especially out on base. You know, we used to have a lot of effluent coming from base that wasn't compliant, but we've been working a lot in the last 10 years to make sure that the base and the people on base know what they can and can't discharge in their system. We meet all our current permit limitations, and that we remove at least 30% of biological oxygen demand and total suspended solids from our effluent. We're regulatory compliant. We do monitoring, testing, daily basis, weekly basis, quarterly basis, on a yearly basis. We have a prescribed set of tests. We send out a report every single year, and our guys, we do great. One of the things that we have going for it is that we don't have a lot of industrial discharges in our waste stream. So we have relatively clean influent coming in before we go out. But we publish on a yearly basis. Our report summarizes all our monitoring, and it's about yay thick of data. You guys really want to get into the nuts and bolts of it. But we're regulatory compliant. Our effluent approaches secondary effluent discharges. We don't quite get the full percentage of biological oxygen demand removal that we need, but in terms of total suspended solids, we're pretty darn close to meeting secondary effluent standards already. We have more than 20 years of monitoring data, and through all that data, we've met all our permit conditions over the years. Our effluent has low trace amounts of other contaminants, cocaine, ibuprofen, you name it. We're pretty low when it comes to all that. Cook Inlet has naturally high levels of trace metals from discharge from glacier streams, so whatever we discharge in there is well below what the native background is. We don't have any toxicity. They've taken fish samples and things like that. We don't show any influence from our effluent in terms of the fish. There's no sedimentation at the outfall. There's no bioaccumulation in algae near the outfall. And Asplin primary effluent is approximately equal to secondary effluent elsewhere. So we think, through 20 years of data, we're a good case for 301H reauthorization. And, when it comes, we've got the data in the background and the investment to prove that we've been investing in it, we've been maintaining it, we've been monitoring it, and, we're ensuring that we have a balanced indigenous population. But we also have to plan the what-if scenarios. So end of 2014, early 2015, we started taking a look, if we are forced to go to secondary treatment standards, what would it cost? And a lot of it depends upon the assumptions that are out there. And these are order of magnitude estimates, but if right now we treat about 30 million gallons a day, we'd say, well, we'd have to treat peak flows. There's two options, either a peak flow of around 43 million gallons a day or an instantaneous peak flow of around 58 million gallons a day. There's a big cost differential of about $100 million to be able to treat those different flows. If we're forced to go to what's considered advanced secondary or almost tertiary treatment, which is where a lot of the regulatory agencies think they may be going, we could be as high as 750 million or more. To put that into perspective, when we spend capital dollars and close a plant and put it in service, depending upon the type of asset and whether or not it's the water or sewer utility, that equates to either for every $10 million that we spend in capital, it's either a 70 to 90 cents per month cost increase to our residential ratepayers. So a $750 million project that all of a sudden we put into service could be $60 to $70 a month rate increase for a residential home if we have to pay everything. Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Go.
Couple questions. One is,
Did you see Dixie?
I thought the Valley had developed their own wastewater treatment plant.
Their septic disposal facility, they have a group meeting currently, but they're running into some stumbling blocks with getting going and the cost of it and everything like that. For right now and for the foreseeable future, we'll still be taking septic from the Valley.
So we're looking at least 5 years out.
Yes.
10 years, okay. How old is our incinerator?
So we have an old incinerator that we're getting ready to tear down.
Yeah.
And then our other incinerator was 1983, 86. That then I upgraded through a project in 2007. and put in new scrubber technology and air control technology there. And so we're looking for a few more years out where we're going to have to do another investment to comply with air permit requirements.
Have you started, I couldn't tell, did you start on the construction of the sludge dehydrator?
No, that's planned for 2 years from now, roughly.
Okay. So the incinerator and dehydrator will probably go arm in arm or both?
The belt filter presses or the sludge dewatering needs to be done first. The equipment's.
The reason Brett and I keep missing, but we're gonna sit down, I saw this technology in BC now that does dehydrating and incineration, and it's a $10 million unit. So-
Cheap.
You know, for our scrubber is the largest water consumer in the city.
Yeah.
We subsidize our water utility.
Yeah.
And to be able to meet our air permit requirements, we use more water than any other single entity in the city.
This unit is a waste to energy, actually a waste to carbon producer. So its purpose isn't for this, but it seems to me like a great.
And that's something we can definitely study.
Yeah, so I'll, maybe even sit on that meeting or take a look at the stuff I have, because Brett, see what you think of it. Thank you.
Okay.
Have you looked at Honolulu's experience? I think they're going to tertiary.
Yes, so right
The
now.
cost is outrageous.
It's outrageous. They're a bigger facility than we are too. So across the United States right now, there's approximately 36 plants that operate under 301H provisions. In Alaska, there's 9 of them, us and Wrangell and a couple other marine discharges that operate. Honolulu just signed a 30-year implementation plan to move from primary to secondary treatment, and it's like $2 billion or something like that. I've got to go back to the news articles, but it's a huge investment for them. But fortunately, they've got a 30-year window to make that transition, because it's their main Honolulu plant, and I think it's also their Sand Lake or whatever it's called. They have 2 plants that they've got to modify, so that's part of what's leading the cost there.
So when will the feds be up here on the 301H recertification? Any idea? Next time the president comes or
What
what?
they tell the mayor. Yeah.
They didn't give the mayor an exact date. They just said, we can't avoid not working on it anymore. They gave us a draft permit in 2009, re-ripped it to shreds because it was poorly written. It didn't take into consideration a lot of the science that we had back there. Because we ripped it to shreds, they said, well, we'll just give you an administrative extension, and it could be another 5 years.
Now, is that every year we have to go back from administrative extension, or is it?
We have not had any additional administrative extension since 2009.
Thank you, sir.
So we're out of compliance.
No, we're in compliance because it's indefinitely administratively extended.
All right. Okay. Any other questions?
Is he finished?
You have more?
Just 2 more real quick.
Okay.
If it moves. A lot of discussion. The land exchange is off the table, but planning for the future, we may need our land reserves out there. We have the 111 acres. Through this exercise of looking at what it would cost, we've also looked at what we would need land-wise in terms of additional land beyond what we currently have. If we just go with option 1 or 2 and have to just do secondary treatment, it's about another 15 to 17 acres of land. If we have to go to advanced secondary, it's an additional 25 to 30 acres of land. And that doesn't include things like, vegetative buffer and screening and snow storage and stuff like that. So, concept-wise, over here on the left is what we currently look like, and north is facing that way. You can see that if we have to go to advanced secondary, we almost triple the footprint of what we currently are out there. So, preservation of something is important. Being able to move this facility to a completely brand new site to be able to do treatment. Find me a 60-acre site in Anchorage that's available.
If you went out that way, would you miss the trail, or would you be beyond the trail?
The trail is on the north side,
north side.
or on this part, the top
Okay.
part of the screen.
I got you. So that's that space supposedly in their plan in between the runway.
Yeah. Okay. Visitors are always welcome.
Oh, you're quick comment.
Elby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I just want to say thank you very much for this great presentation. It was really informational for me. Just one little criticism. You and I both referred to what's at the dome at the port as concrete, and Steve doesn't like that. It's not concrete,
It's cement.
it's cement.
I realize
So
that.
we got to work on that.
Well, in his case,
Both
it
of
is
us.
concrete. It's hard.
It's shotcrete, right? It's a shotcrete dome.
Gotta know your product.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's coming at some point in time, you know, in terms of having to do the upgrade. What do you say? What did you say? 36 in the USA that are
36 in the U.S.
Primary treatment?
that have primary treatment, and 9 of them are in Alaska.
now. Does anybody point to the decline in belugas as a result of your discharge? Our discharge?
There are some that have speculated that the science from all our bioassays, the modeling of the inlets and the flows, and where our effluent goes compared to where the belugas congregate don't support that.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Can we have a little bit? We may have to extend a few minutes if anybody has a problem, but I would like to hear from ML&P. See what you got. And you are?
Eugene Ori, MLP,
Thank you.
Steel, family members. Thank you. We weren't on the schedule, but it had been a couple months since we had last reported, so we wanted to get in front of you at a minimum. The report in front of you shows that the project contract terms have not changed. Still due to be completed June 2016. Safety stats, project is a high point of this project. Continues to be more than 50% below both Alaska and national safety OSHA incidents, lost time and incident rates, which is great. Progress on site, there's been a significant amount of progress since the last spoke to the Oversight Committee. The large utility grade transformers are now in their containment pits. The auxiliary transformers are in place. The black start diesel to start up the plant and or the rail belt if necessary is in place. The connections to AWW's ERS project, large 3-foot diameter cooling water pipes and the smaller 20-inch diameter inlet chilling pipes are in place. So we are now connected to AWW, and they have a separate project that they continue to build up, and we are building up that way. We're working on the periphery buildings of the main power block building, specifically the pump house in front of the cooling tower. High voltage connection to MLP's existing transmission yard called GIS, gas insulated switchgear yard, is up. It's a separate 30-foot tall building. And advanced switching equipment will be going into that building soon. Down around the back of the project behind the CEA 230 yard is our gas compressor house that is getting ready to go up. Gas compressors are on site today and are being placed. That's what the big crane is there for. And finally, the inlet filter houses that filter the air going into the gas turbines are being placed now by a large crane. Cranes will go away after this, and work will continue. However, there's a bunch of molehills and excavations as the contractor continues to do underground drains, fire and water loop, and electrical duct banks, pretty much 360 degrees around the project. And winter's coming, so it's an issue. NSTAR's pipe is connected to NSTAR and down to the project, and so we're getting close to the utility connections for water, electrical, ACS, gas. Sewer's another story. Here in the next week or two, contractor will be extending the sewer down Starview Drive, the frontage road in front of the old plant to the connection point with AWW at the Centennial Campground. Again, we could have a foot of frost and growing by this time of year, and so the weather is being very kind to the contractor at this point. Up on the roof is done, but it's in a high wind zone, 120 mile an hour rated zone, being close to the mountains. So there's the flat parapet roof needs to have these pavers put on it to hold the roof down so it doesn't become a sail in a large wind event. So those pavers are going up at this time. And within the plant, lots of piping, welding, electrical, more electrical continues. There's about 80 electricians on site. There's about 250 men and women on site. It is a buzzing hive of construction activity. So that's the general status of construction at this point. Schedule. Project is currently trailing the contractor's schedule. As I noted a second ago, the civil work continues, and at this point in the project, you would want to be up and out of the ground. And so, as winter comes, it just makes it that much harder to work in the ground with artificial heating, etc. But the contractor will need to get out of the ground soon. We sent a letter, a notice of schedule slippage to the contractor last Friday, and we're requesting a recovery plan. So what does this mean? We see 30 to 60 days behind at this point. June 12, 2016 is contractual substantial completion, the point in time at which we were supposed to receive utility grade power, and we're not seeing it. Our owner's engineer, IEC, with lots of experience is saying we're not seeing it. There is a lot of reasons for this. Fits and starts within engineering, a project manager change at Quanta's level, and general material mismanagement. Valves not being ordered in time and being delayed, or other critical material that is holding up critical path on the project. But nonetheless, that's what we're seeing. We've walked with the contractor for a long time, and we're officially putting them on notice, so we're not seeing that. What does that mean for us? Well, within the contract, there's significant, substantial, or liquidated damages clauses that were calculated to make the MLP whole at a business level for having to run its older, inefficient turbines longer. So really, it's a net zero to MLP, but it nonetheless will be a black mark on the contractor if that happens. So that's where we're at. Art, do you want to speak about change orders and budget?
Could I just ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
So, the project manager that was there from the beginning is no longer there?
Yes, ma'am. Quanta is a conglomerate construction company, multi-billion-dollar outfit. They're, to the best of my knowledge, they're a consortium of 30 construction and engineering companies, and they took a wholly owned EPC contractor company that they own out of Denver and sidelined them and brought in a new outfit called Phoenix Power Group that they also owned. Said, "You're failing it, here, take it over." And they did that this spring. And we observed that, made us nervous, but we have a parent guarantee with Quanta Corporate, and so it's really under the, what do you call it, the means and methods of the contractor to execute the project.
Because in our previous reports, of course, we got some glowing reports and they were way ahead of schedule. Were you seeing any slippage before they replaced the management?
Yes, they were touting that they thought they could be ahead of schedule, and in fact, we think that they changed project managers because they were all wet about that, and or didn't fully understand what they were doing.
But you didn't. The safety records still remained the same, and the quality of work still remained the same. So you don't feel that there's any aspect of that contract where that the quality of work wasn't there. It just they were slipping in time.
So the short answer is yes. I believe the quality of work is still there. However, on the owner's side, representation side, IEC Corporation, who's representing MLP and MOA, they're having to paddle harder and wag their finger at the contractor, "No, you can't do that," or we see these NCRs or these problems. And so, in order to keep the quality up, IEC is working very hard in our owner's representation. But yes, I have no issues with the quality of the project. It's literally schedule at this point. You can get there many ways, but at some point, your choices affect your critical path to completion.
Does that mean we're spending more on oversight than we planned to or had been spending on?
Yes, sir. That's a good question, and it absolutely does. The one contract that I will be bringing forth the assembly for approval here in the next cycle or two is a contract amendment for increased funds to IEC to oversee the contractor. This is for several reasons. An example of ways and means or means and methods. Prudence would say there's so much piping, there's miles and miles of piping within this project. Prudence would say you do as much of that in a shop location off-site as possible, and then you x-ray and inspect that off-site. This contractor chose to do everything in the field, and that costs more time and labor in the field. It's generally more expensive overall, and generally harder to do special inspection, x-ray, which is, special inspection is within the purview of the owner's oversight, IEC. So we have more costs for like Alaska Industrial X-ray to inspect on site, and that's the root. So the one area that we're feeling it is in our owner's oversight contract.
And do you have a feel for that yet?
Yes, ma'am. We will be bringing a change order through, like say, in the next 2 to 4 weeks. It'll be $3 million.
So it's sizable.
It's sizable. Now, the project as a whole, as Bart will show you, is well under budget. It's more than $15 million under budget. And this is the one contract that we need to address within the several contracts. For example, the GE contract is several $1 million under project. And in fact, the Quanta contract, all change orders are owner directed at this point. We're only 20% spent on the change order authority within the Quanta $200 million contract. So this is the one area that it was an estimate at the time to completion. And as we went to contract with Quanta and evolved with them, we see that their choices are probably less than stellar. And it's affecting us in special.
Are those additional costs recoverable?
Not under the contracts, no.
Okay.
Do you have any input on Quanta's changing of contractors?
What kind of input, sir?
Well, can you tell them, hey, we want what the company had there before? Or are we just stuck with who they've given us? You said they changed
Yeah.
the company out.
Back in March, we saw that they were slipping. They're touting they're 6 months ahead of schedule. We even brought that to this body and said, hey, they say they're ahead of schedule. We're not seeing it, but and they were making some very big errors in engineering and moves that affected their project as a whole. The Quanta corporate saw that and elected to make this change. We observed, we sent memos of observation and what is your plan, rectification plan. However, legal, you can only mess with the pie so much before you own it. And this was a decision made by them, we observe it, and they still own schedule, cost, and all the terms within the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Real fast, I want to go through the budget and the change orders part.
Sure. Just give you, Eugene touched on a couple of things. The project.
Excuse me just a minute. Let me extend us for till quarter after.
I'm going to make my pen for a minute.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Just 1 minute.
The financial sheet in front of you is what you've historically seen. We are basically moving along consistently with what we projected. What I would like to do, though, is just take a couple of minutes and give you a flavor of what is changing and what you're going to be seeing changes in the near future on. And we expect to really provide you a full new projection in January as we move into the last quarter of this project. So under the Quanta project, with change order number 8, which is currently in our signature process, it's going to move that committed column on that contract above our projected column. However, here probably in about 120 days, we're going to be moving about $2 million off of the Quanta contract. And this is a reimbursable line item that we have for spare parts and equipment for plant startup. But because we went to a 2-year warranty, we're not going to have to make that investment, so that money will come off of the contract. So we're going to go up, and then we're going to come back down. So that's just to let you know that will be occurring. We also have about another $150,000 in change orders that are in the mill right now. And as we look down the road, we're seeing fewer and fewer change orders, but we can't guarantee that there won't be some other fit and finish items that we'll have to bring through as the project progresses. The GE contract, that current commitment of $54 million, we're projected at 51. We still believe that's a good number, and we are currently working with GE to remove $3.5 million off this contract. That again was for spare parts and equipment. Most of that was picked up through existing inventory at MLMP because of the aeroderivative platform that they are now moving to, and they already have an LM2500. And the other componentry that they did need, they're basically picking up through their warehouse account, so we don't have to pick it up on the capital side. So that money will be coming off the contract. The IEC contract, currently committed at 11.4. Our projection this last January was 12.4, and as Eugene just pointed out, we're really seeing, that's where we're seeing the big increase. We're bringing through a change order now for $3 million, and that will bring that number up to 14.4. In addition to the increased testing and X-ray services, which has substantially impacted the IEC contract. They also brought on additional resources to oversee the contractor, especially in the instrumentation and controls component. And we're also using them pretty extensively right now to provide white papers and engineering for decommissioning, BTU transfer between us and AWU, and some run plan activity, which we have to project forward on the plant. So there's a number of services that IEC is providing as part of this contract. It's not all just on the construction side. So that is driving that $3 million increase. Builder's risk, that's insurance policy. To date, we have no claims, and we don't see any coming down the road, barring any force majeure event, earthquake or something else. So we're in good shape there. The AFUDC, as you can see, we were committed at $28 million. Our projection was $20 million. When we reproject this in January, I would tell you right now that we will probably remove another $5 to $8 million off this line item. So this will bring the overall project cost well under our $300 million target. Our A&G is pretty much moving on target. Other expenses are on target, and our infrastructure projects are on target. So overall, while the numbers are shifting in between the line items a little bit, we're very, very confident that this project will come in under the $300 million number that we have here today, but we are going to have to shuffle that.
But is there a change in scope? Are you getting less as well?
No, it's, I will tell you the one thing that we always have to be cautious with is that if there's ever a claim on the project, it's never at this point. The claims come in right at the end when they're missing schedule and they want to put blame on the owner, and then you end up, having to fight your way through that a little bit. We've heard some noises that the engineering firm may be making a claim against their own in Quanta. The Stantec Engineering may be making a claim to Quanta. Now, we don't know what that looks like at this point, but if that is substantial, and we suspect it is, that they may try to push on us to reimburse them if they fail to mitigate that claim. So it doesn't mean that we are totally out of the woods. We can only project and tell you what we know, and that's the only thing we know coming down the pipe. As Eugene mentioned, if we're correct in our assessment that their float on the project is basically down to zero, and if they do push 30 to 60 days, they're looking at liquidated damages to the tune of $30,000 a day. That's about $3 million every 10 days, so, or $300,000, about $1 million a month. So it adds up fairly quickly. The first thing that the contractor will move to is try to show information that is our fault on the MLM owner side to try to mitigate those losses. So I'm not going to hold out right now and tell you there is not going to be a push on their side to try to recover that.
Jennifer, you had a question?
It's just part of the game.
Just for curiosity, the first round of dirt work that was done before we signed the quantum, is that in that 300 million, or is that separate? The infamous dirt work?
There's two components that were, that you probably didn't notice the first one. The first one was actually the removal of the hill that was down there. That was about a $2 million contract, and that is embedded in our other cost. That was part of the project cost. The second phase of that is when we went up above the project and did what we called the SSSA project, which was the clearing and leveling of the upper terrace, and that was not part of this project. That was funded separately through a separate capital.
That started as a replacement of the gas pipelines in Plant 2 and prep up the delivery point to Plant 2A. And we need to make space available to build this project, or else we'll have higher.
That was the one that had the large cost overrun.
Correct.
And that was, and I think in transparency, we need to also just have that in our back of our head as one of the costs of doing business.
Still was a cost, yeah. Go ahead. Or did you have more?
That's it. Basically, we're on track otherwise, and everything is looking actually pretty well financially. With the caveats.
At the moment. Any other questions? Mr. Abbott, anything from you?
No, sir.
I have a comment
Elvie?
when we're done. Just an overall
Okay.
comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I just want to take a moment to thank all the utilities that are here for meeting with the Enterprise Committee every month. I know it may be a little bit time consuming, and nobody wants to meet unnecessarily. I certainly don't. But for starters, our utilities are major investments within our community and economic drivers also. And it's important for the Assembly to stay on top of what's happening. And just in case, for those who don't know, this is a committee, and not all Assembly members are on this committee. But during our Assembly meeting, committee reports are given so that, briefly, so that all Assembly members know what's going on with our investments in our community. So I just wanted to share that, and also, again, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you guys for coming, all of you. A lot of food for thought. It's a good meeting. Probably need to have more of them. But as Elvie said, these are major projects, major investments. All of them have some risks. The Asplin facility certainly has risks, as does the new construction in any way, shape, or form. So everybody's got big projects going, and we're just praying to the gods that everything comes out right. But you guys are doing good. Thank you. And adjourned.